On tech news today, the iPad Air reviews are in, Twitter's getting a lot more visual, and is Intel throwing in the TV towel? All that and what happens when you drive with Google Glass, next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, October 30th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website, portfolio, or online store. For a free trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT10. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out where your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at gazelle.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Isaac Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And Tom Merritt is feeling a little under the weather today, so he's hopefully sleeping it off.
Hopefully.
He actually has a cold. I made it sound more scandalous than
Wait a
it actually
minute. Is he in the chat room right now?
Probably. Because he's Tom. But we're going to go ahead and forge ahead with the stories of the day, starting with the top 10 in the news fuse. iPad Air reviews have hit the internet, and we've got some interesting specifications. For example, it's clocking it at 80% faster than the fourth generation iPad. That's according to Primate Labs, who put the tablet through some Geekbench tests. The Air has an A7 processor that's running at 1.4 gigahertz, which is 100 megahertz faster than the 5S, although the 5S also has an A7. The new Air is also 5 times faster than iPad 2, which makes the second generation iPad, which is still selling for $399, just $100 less than the starting price for the iPad Air, more perplexing than ever.
There's a new look for Twitter. The company announced it's going to make timelines more visual and feature image and video previews in tweets on the web as well as on iOS and Android apps. If you don't like the auto expand feature, you can turn it off in the app version, but not the web. Internet, commence your complaining.
At the ARM Developers Conference, Intel partner Altera announced that Intel will fabricate its ARM 64-bit chips starting next year. Intel's been trying to break ARM's stronghold on the mobile market, but this move looks like the company has decided, well, we can't beat them, so we might as well join them. Analysts say Intel is even willing to compete with semiconductor foundry leader TSMC for the business of big rivals like NVIDIA and Qualcomm. So, how long until Apple ditches Samsung for Intel?
After a $110 million settlement with the MPAA, Isohunt is back. Well, sort of. The new site is at isohunt.to, and it looks pretty much exactly the same as the old isohunt.com. However, the people behind the new site are not related to the old Isohunt in any way. Isohunt.to has restored about 75% of the original site's database.
Nintendo has announced it sold 460,000 Wii U consoles worldwide in the 6-month period ending September 30th. Overall sales of the Wii U are about 3.9 million globally, although Nintendo still claims it's going to sell 9 million before the end of its 2014 financial year. The Wii U is still having a negative impact on the company's profits, says the company, because of the price reduction in the US and Europe alongside advertising expenses. But the company says it'll drive manufacturing costs of the hardware down and improve the distribution of digital software to boost income.
Lenovo can't stop yogaing its whole lineup because the company just introduced 2 new Android-based tablets called the Yoga Tablet 8 and the Yoga Tablet 10. From the side, the devices look an awful like the Apple wireless keyboard. It's a little bit strange. Both tablets feature a kickstand and will last up to 18 hours on a single charge. Inside, you're looking at a quad-core 1.2 gigahertz Cortex A7 processor and 1 gigabyte of RAM. The 8-inch tablet costs $250, while the 10-inch version is $300.
Google showed off its second-generation Google Glass. In some images of the device, we've got 2 really bored-looking models showing off the eyewear, complete with a new mono earbud. The earbud would replace the bone conduction speaker system of the original. Google also said the new version of Glass would make it compatible with prescription lenses as well as sunglasses. The company will run an exchange program for Google Glass Explorers if they bought their glass before October 28th, 2013.
If you've got Google Glass, you might want to do yourself a favor. Don't wear them while driving in California. Google Glass explorer Cecilia Abade just received a ticket for driving while wearing Google Glass. The stated reason for the moving violation is, quote, driving with monitor visible to driver, parentheses Google Glass, end quote. Now, there's a question on the legality of the whole ticket issued. Court case, anyone?
Apple says it's replacing a very limited number of new iPhones after finding a manufacturing defect that has limited battery performance. Apple didn't say how many phones have been affected by this issue, but the company is apparently contacting customers by phone, suggesting the problem is probably pretty limited. The defect does not affect the safety of the iPhone batteries.
Yesterday, Google added some features to Google+. Coming soon is full-resolution backups of images for iOS, photo enhancement tools, and some new Auto Awesome features like Auto Awesome Eraser to remove things like photo bombers from your beautiful images. Google+ also started sending out emails to Plus users offering them custom domains. The first set of custom domains were sent to those users who have a profile photo, have at least 10 followers, and an account that's at least 30 days old. You know, I was really liking my old Plus URL of plus.google.com/u/o/110385. I mean,
it's catchy.
583.
Yeah.
Never mind.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the all-in-one platform that makes it easy to create your own professional website, portfolio, or online store. They're constantly improving their platform. They've always got new features, new designs, better support all the time. But let's talk about the designs for a second. They have more than 20 new beautiful templates for you to start with. I mean, these templates are quite lovely. Lots of style options. You can customize to your heart's desire or kind of leave it as is and just add your content in there. Squarespace can do all the work for you or let you do as much work as you want. It's very, very easy to use. Squarespace also has amazing support for those times that you have a question here and there. They're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's inexpensive. Starts at just $8 per month. Includes a free domain name if you sign up for a year. Mobile optimized too. Every design includes a mobile experience, so your website's going to look good no matter how anybody is getting a hold of you, and it's commerce ready. You can build yourself a powerful and flexible e-commerce solution, which is integrated to work with every Squarespace template, by the way. This is something that you don't have to choose some special e-commerce template. It allows sales for physical and digital goods. So let's say you want to sell your new album in MP3 form, or maybe you wrote a book or an ebook. All of that stuff can be sold right from your Squarespace website. A single interface for order management as well, so you can track your orders. You can customize your customer email updates. You can print shipping labels. You can add coupons. You can do it all. Global reach for your online store, as Squarespace Commerce is now available in 10 countries. The US, the UK, Canada, Australia, Belgium, France, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, and Spain. Are you hooked yet? Start a trial with no credit card required and just start building your website. When you sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use the offer code TNT10, that's TNT, the number 10, to get 10% off and to show your support for Tech News Today. We thank Squarespace for their support, and that's Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional website. All right, back to some news. And joining us to talk about some of the top stories of the day is Jeff Cannata. Hello,
hey.
Jeff.
Hello. Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Well, thank you for being here so much. The host of Newest, Latest, Best. I love the name of that.
It's my new show about all things geeky, video games, comic books, movies, television shows, novels. Really, it is your ultimate guide to how to spend your free time. And it's on YouTube at the moment. On my YouTube page, that's youtube.com/CannataJeff with 2 N's and 1 T.
Sounds rad.
Absolutely excellent. Yeah, I mean, I would say, maybe I'm going on a limb, but you seem like you belong here with us.
Oh, well, I would agree with that.
The source material. All right, let's start off with talking about some of these iPad Air benchmarks. Of course, the review units that many of the reporters have the embargo has lifted, and everybody got to write their stuff. I think what's going on over at Primate Labs was the most interesting to me. John Poole over at Primate Labs did a bunch of benchmarks and wrote up some stuff mentioned in the news views. One of the curious things is that the iPad Air has that A7 processor, which is also running in the 5S, but it is running at 1.4 gigahertz, which is faster than the 5S's A7 as well. Possibly, a different battery, larger battery type of a thing, or some combination of stuff that's going on under the hood. He also says that probably the iPad mini A7 processor will perform the same because it's basically the same. It's the same tablet now, just a little bit smaller. iPad Air over 80% faster than the 4th gen iPad, which is a huge bump up to pretty much what Apple said, that there was a 2x increase in speed. And over 5 times faster than that iPad 2, which Apple is still selling. Nobody really seems to understand why, but they are. Okay. Even though the new Air is over, just about $100 more. John Gruber over at Daring Fireball, who of course writes about all things Apple, has some interesting thoughts on, it really starts to come down to, if you're going to use a new iPad, let's call it the iPad Air, as a replacement for a laptop, how much better is it than that 4th gen iPad? Or if you really kind of like the idea of a tablet to supplement a laptop, does the iPad Air make any more sense than the Mini, since the Mini is still going to be smaller and more portable? Jeff, what do you think?
Well, I'm a strange use case, perhaps. I have a long-going love affair with my iPad. It's the first device I touch in the morning. It's the last device I touch at night. It is a wonderful web browsing piece of hardware, and I adore using it. I don't have a mini. I have a regular size iPad. The fact that it is that much faster than my current piece of hardware makes me want to upgrade more than ever. However, I use it for very little other than surfing the web. That's really the only app that I'm using. Twitter, and I'm using Safari, or Chrome sometimes. But yeah, that's really all I use my iPad for. And 80% faster makes me go, I want this. But is it going to be that much different? Actually loading a web page slightly faster? Probably not. I don't use it as a replacement for a laptop. And I actually don't really use it as a portable device either. I usually use it as the device that stays in my house and that I pick up most often during the day to browse the web or check email. So for me, it's not even a discussion of, is it going to replace my laptop? If I'm traveling somewhere, I take my laptop. I don't take my iPad just because it simply has too few of the things that I need out in the field, like being able to plug a zip drive into, or a flash drive into it, being able to get data from people easily. Those things are limitations. So I'm still using my laptop, and just because it's faster isn't going to make me use my iPad instead of my laptop.
Yeah, I agree with Jeff when it comes to the performance bump. That actually got me to switch from a 3 to a 4. The iPad 3 was the first iPad I purchased because I didn't like that low-res screen. I'm very much a display snob when it comes to that. That's why I have the new Nexus 7 and why I have an iPad 4 now, because the performance was better. The new one's supposed to be way faster. The idea that it's 100 megahertz faster than the iPhone 5S, I think that makes a lot of sense, considering you probably can have heat dissipation a lot better in a device that size. A larger battery means you can have more performance and still have a larger battery compared to the iPhone. That is, that means that you can have the performance of an iPad with the same processor. I actually use the device outside a lot. My iPad was my only data connected device. It was ridiculously large, so I carried a purse effectively all the time. So the weird thing about Apple is I don't know how they've done this. Their deals with Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, and AT&T, the data costs are so cheap. I don't understand how this is the only device out there, and the Mini, I guess, that allows for this kind of data connection. I'm on Friday probably going to go to the store and go get this, because this device has already been sold to Gazelle for a couple of bucks. So so long iPad, hello iPad Air. Maybe, because the Mini looks very attractive too. It's really cheap, and it's got the same resolution.
Yeah, I mean that's the funny thing about it is it's like nobody's going to complain that these iPad benchmarks look really good. I guess somebody will complain about something, but yeah, it's faster is better. But let's be honest, what are we really using our iPads for most of the time? Does it really matter? I think it matters if you're the kind of person who says, this is kind of my number one device. I don't really bring my laptop with me. But I don't know who those people are, really. I mean, you're still going to have to use some sort of an external keyboard, and well, depending on what you're doing. Well, enough about iPads. Let's talk about Twitter. It's gotten more beautiful. Is that right, Ayaz?
Maybe. It's definitely gotten a lot more visual. Beautiful might be a whole other thing. So Twitter's changed the way they're displaying their website, their apps. So originally, if you had like an image or a video that was embedded in a tweet, you'd click it and it would expand and you would see it that way. Now, Twitter's going to be turning that on by default on the web and on their iOS and Android app. So on the iOS and Android app, you can turn that off as a default, but when it comes to the web, that's going to be on all the time. Right now, the only videos that'll show up is a Vine video. There's also, at the bottom of a tweet, there are dedicated options for reply, retweet, and favorite. Before, you have to click into the tweet, and then you can hit reply and those other options. So people are calling it a lot more like Facebook. And here in the video, you can see that in the iOS app, on the bottom of these automatically expanded images, you can see the little star, the reply, and retweet. Jack Marshall over at Digiday.com says this is effectively Twitter's answer to banner ads, since brands could put images in their feeds that you can't avoid, and also, if it's a promoted tweet, could be at the very top. Jeff, does this change bother you?
Well, it's funny. I saw my Twitter feed explode with all the, what's going on? What's going on with my Twitter? There's all these pictures all of a sudden. And I was like, what? Really? Because I use a third-party Twitter app. I use Tweetbot, and it didn't happen for me. So I went over to the website and checked it out, and lo and behold, yeah, it looks like Facebook now. And I think that what has happened with Facebook that's so disturbing to me personally as a lover of language is that it's just, it literally is, if anybody wants to say something, they have to put it in a picture with Helvetica font in the picture because no one actually reads the text that people are writing in their updates. And I can totally see Twitter going that way as well. It's like, people just scrolling down and looking at their pictures. I don't particularly care about the ads thing. Ads are a part of life, and I think it's strange when people get so upset that ads are invading their free service. It's like, well, just scroll past it. It takes 4 seconds to scroll past it. It's not going to kill you. But I do see the de-emphasis on actual 140 character tweets and more emphasis on pictures if it's just going to be a row of pictures like Facebook. So that's a little disturbing to me.
It's funny. I was somebody mentioned it to me last night. Hey, what do you think about Twitter's changes? And I was sort of like, I don't know. I use Tweetbot, so I never really see anything that people to get all upset about, whether there's blue lines between tweets. It's like, I am sort of blissfully unaware most of the time. But I went to the web version just to check it out, and it's like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. I think it's actually really, really genius that we're going to get used to seeing images so that, yes, when advertisers want to push something at us, we're already like, oh, that's along with all the other images there. That is not too intrusive because I'm used to it. It makes sense to me. I'm not saying it's, awesome, but I think it's inevitable. But I really don't get why there seems to be so much backlash of people saying it's just like Facebook. If somebody's if somebody's sharing an image that you don't like, then you can unfollow them. I've heard some people saying, well, what if it's an image that, could get me in trouble at work because it's been blown up and I don't have, the option to expand it, if I know that there might be questionable material. Well, maybe you could unfollow that person. I don't really get why this bothers people so much.
I'll tell you why. Or
don't check your Twitter on a giant screen at work, perhaps.
It's because there's more scrolling involved. This is the issue. This is very hard to do. Okay, because you have these expanded images and expanded video. The reason why people are complaining is simple. It's a change. Anything that happens to Twitter, let's all freak out. And then within, a couple of weeks, people will forget that's there. I am concerned that we're going to see lots of text written in images because that's a good way to get around 140 characters as well. So, thoughts continued in image. But
thoughts continued in image. See image for more info.
It wouldn't be searchable. That's kind of an issue. But I don't think this is going to be so bad. But it just screams something that Twitter has to do before its IPO. If they can say, hey, look, this is how we can have advertisements that people see. It's on by default. So start it slow now before it becomes a banner ad in the future. Because if you're using the third-party apps, you're not going to notice this right away. But as Twitter's done, they basically want you on the web all the time. Their apps are kind of exactly the same. The fact they even give you the option to turn those things off in iOS and Android, I'm curious how long that will last.
Can I just, maybe I'm the one who's overreacting to this a little bit, but I do feel like maybe this gives it too much credit, but I do see the difference between Facebook and Twitter as it stands now as the difference between maybe a news feed and a magazine. I think the way certainly I experience Facebook right now is I scroll through like I would a magazine, looking at the pretty pictures. And if there's something that catches my eye, then I go back and read, I dig deeper and read the actual text of what's going on. And I think that's the danger of what Twitter may become. Instead of reading people's tweets, as I do now, people just scroll through and look at the pictures. And if something catches their eye, they'll then read the tweets. I do think that's bad. And I'm trying not to overreact to just change, but I do think that's potentially bad.
All right. Well, I don't know. We'll have to see if it actually becomes a reality bad or stays as a potential bad. But for now, let's talk about ARM chips. Who's in? At the ARM Developers Conference, Intel partner, as I mentioned in the news use, Altera says Intel's going to fabricate ARM 64-bit chips starting next year. Now, I can't pretend to get all up in arms about ARM chips, but I understand that this is a very big deal. In the tech industry, Intel obviously has been competing very fiercely with ARM's, supremacy in the mobile market. Nathan Brockwood, who's a principal analyst over at Inside 64, says it's huge. Imagine ARM's most powerful and technologically advanced 64-bit processor built on Intel's leading edge fabs, a duo that would be hard to beat. So if Intel is ready to open up to ARM-based partners like Altera, well, I mean, it kind of opens the floodgates for other companies. I guess my question is anyone surprised? Was it only a matter of time before Intel said, all right, we got to do this. ARM's the future and we can't beat these guys. Jeff?
Yeah, it seems to make a lot of sense. I'm woefully ignorant into the intricacies of fabrication centers and how they interrelate in the tech industry. So I don't really understand the magnitude with which this is being received. It seems to me like it makes a lot of sense and kind of a no-brainer, but perhaps you guys know better than I.
When it comes to processing or making chips, that is, Intel's yield has usually been better than a lot of these other fabrications. And the thing is, Intel has been pretty close. They used to just make its x86 chips. They've licensed ARM a long time ago before it got really big in mobile. So they have experience when it comes to making chips that can have the higher yield. So if you have a high demand product like an iPad or a Samsung device or something out there, if those manufacturers can't get their fabrication in order, Intel would have the ability to do that. The fact that Intel could potentially be up for the highest bidder. So if Apple's saying, hey, we want you to make our ARM-based A7s, and Intel says, fine, that's just a huge revenue stream. It looks like Intel's diversifying a bit, but it's not they're not licensing the ARM architecture. They're just fabricating for other manufacturers. So it's kind of it's not exactly Intel's jump into ARM, but if Intel decided to actually make their own versions of ARM chips, that could be a little bit more intriguing. But this just shows an openness for Intel to be up for the highest bidders, because that fabrication unit used to just be Intel, and that was closed off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're talking about chip prices potentially coming down. The Apple angle of it, even though it's a bit of a leap at this point, because you're right, Ayaz, this is more of a potential partnerships rather than a huge shift in Intel's strategy. But I have to wonder how much of that is really the end goal here, because that Apple would like to release itself from Samsung completely. I mean, the two companies don't get along for a variety of reasons, and it just happens to have to depend on Samsung at this point. And the two companies, Apple and Intel, already have a good relationship in other areas. So.
Yeah, and Intel would love that kind of partnership, because there's lots of rumors of MacBook Airs running on ARM architecture, because the A7 was claimed to be a desktop class processor, which had a lot of people thinking, okay, wait a minute, Apple's going to move to ARM for their portables, which would actually be really interesting because of iOS and OS X's convergence. But this is just good for Intel. They're going to make more revenue. They're diversifying, and it could lead to crazy things.
Crazy things. Speaking of crazy things, Ayaz says he's going to go get in line on Friday and buy himself a new iPad Air.
True story.
And he mentioned Gazelle, waved around his current iPad. Let's tell you a little bit about that in case you're like, hey, what's Gazelle? What is it? How does it work? If you're thinking about getting that new iPad, or maybe you just got a new iPhone, Gazelle wants to buy your used iPhone or iPad or smartphone or other kind of gadget. What you can do is lock in a price right now Send your gadget to Gazelle when you get your new one because Gazelle's offer is good for 30 days. It makes it really convenient because you've got some time to get your new gadget set up and it's a risk-free offer too. So once you get that price, you are good to go for 30 days. You can take your time. Then you get paid fast by check, PayPal, or for an extra 5% with an Amazon gift card. So here's what you do. Go to gazelle.com right now to get an offer for that iPhone, or that iPad, or that other gadget. You tell Gazelle the condition that it's in. You choose your gadget. It's very, very, very easy. Then you get paid in cash. Payment is fast. It's within a few days of the item being received. Those offers are good for 30 days. Gazelle will even wipe your data for free. They make it really, truly as easy as possible to get paid for your gadgets. In fact, they've paid more than $100 million to over 700,000 customers already. So it's easy. Free shipping too. iPhone 5, 4S, iPad 3, maybe a Samsung Galaxy S2 or 3, whatever you've got, Gazelle wants to take it off your hands and pay you cash. What's your iPhone worth? Take a minute and go to gazelle.com to find out. Do it now because your gadget may lose value the longer you wait. And we thank Gazelle for their support of Tech News Today. All right, Ayaz, let's talk a little bit about Intel's plans for TV domination.
Yeah, so while they're opening up for ARM chips, they might be shutting down Intel Media. So All Things D is reporting that Intel's in talks to hand over control of Intel Media to Verizon. Now, Intel Media is the division that was working on building a web-based subscription TV service on the web. It's been called OnQ. Verizon already has a paid TV service. Now, people familiar with the talk say the two companies are in advanced negotiations. All Things D says it's unclear whether Verizon would take control of the entire Intel Media unit or if Intel would retain a piece of the web TV project or a say in the operation. So not really clear what's going to happen there, but it does look like Intel's web TV project might be dead, at least under Intel. Jeff, do you think Intel should give up on TV online? Or if so, would Verizon have a better chance of bringing subscription TV to the web?
Well, it certainly sounds like Intel was having a lot of problems brokering the specific media rights deals. And certainly Verizon has much more experience in that area. They might have a better odds of creating another pay media service. Although, do we need another pay media service? It seems like continuing to splinter off all these things and not knowing where I'm going to be able to find my movie or TV show on which different crazy service is less convenient for the consumer rather than more. But it certainly seems like Verizon has a better angle than Intel would.
I mean, just on name recognition alone, it already sounds like it makes more sense to me. Yeah, I'm not sure if Verizon's the right partner for a company like Intel to really bring something to the market that people want. But we've been talking about this Intel story, every few weeks when it comes up in the news, and we all kind of scratch our heads like, what is it? How's that going to work exactly? So it sort of seems like Verizon would be a great partnership just because they've got a certain media angle that Intel just doesn't have.
Yeah, the thing about the Intel project that was intriguing to me, because a lot of the discussions were you're going to be paying the same amount of money for television on the web. You're going to have the same bundles. You're going to basically be having cable television on the internet. Nothing really exciting about it other than the fact Intel was working on a UI that's supposed to make it really simple to find stuff. Like Jeff's mentioning, there's services everywhere, hard to find anything. And especially with cable TV, you've got this endless stream of all kinds of data at once. Intel was supposed to have a design on the UI that's supposed to make the experience completely different. If Verizon gets its hands on that and they decide to put that into their television unit, that might be really interesting because cable TV UIs have been kind of slow to upgrade. I know that there's the new X1 service with Comcast supposed to be better. Verizon's BIOS wasn't horrible, and Time Warner Cable shouldn't have one. But
agreed.
But I think that could be the intriguing angle here if Verizon can take that UI thing, and also if Intel still has a say in it. Verizon has a lot of these established partnerships with these content companies already. Maybe gives them a chance to do this. I don't know if they're going to bother, but maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like they were really far down the road on this, that they were already having employees testing it internally in their homes. So it sounds like the UI was in a state of usability, at least. It wasn't this wasn't an early design phase. This was pretty well incubated. right?
Yeah, they couldn't. They had that. They had a lot of the rumors, or at least the reports, were Intel internally testing it. I think like 3,000 or so employees trying it out, but they just couldn't get the content companies on board because they were asking for actually a higher rate than they would for cable companies because Intel has an unproven model. Now Verizon has a proven model. Maybe they can do something with that, but it's still, who knows what's going to happen with this.
Yeah, it sounds like it's sort of like, oh, Intel becomes a hardware partner for something else. You know, I mean, it seems like it's kind of trudging along, you know, with a whimper. I don't know. All right, well, let's move on to sort of a sad day for a gal who was pulled over. Her name is Cecilia Abadi, who was pulled over for not just driving 10 miles over the speed limit, but also wearing Google Glass while driving. Now, so there's 2 violations, but she posted this. She posted her citation to Google Plus, got a lot of attention, and you know, it's kind of making the rounds in the Google Glass circles. Apparently, she violated California Vehicle Code Section 27602, which addresses television use inside motor vehicles. Now, of course, you could say, well, there already are televisions inside motor vehicles, and yes, there are workarounds if it's a navigation screen or something that can display a navigation screen. So, this is. The officer's explanation says driving with monitor visible to driver. So that's Google Glass. Well, a lot of people are saying this is probably a really good time to talk about whether or not Google Glass should be a ticketable offense. Right now, you can't text. You're not supposed to be watching anything on a monitor. But there are certain situations where, let's say you've printed out directions on a map. The map is, you know, a piece of paper that's sitting in your passenger seat next to you and you're looking down. I mean, that's not a ticketable offense, but Google Glass is because it's assuming that you're not paying attention. Now, you know, we're not going to change any laws by talking about it here, but Jeff, what do you think should be the case going forward? Because this is probably the first of many tickets to come.
Yeah, well, first of all, what kind of person, when they get pulled over and the cop starts walking up to their car, doesn't remove the Google Glass from their face and put it in the, you know? Come on. Because clearly this woman was pulled over for driving 10 miles over the speed limit. And when he walked up, he's like, what the hell is that on your face? You know? I don't think he was like, wow, there's Google Glass. I'm going to pull that lady over. But that being said, I think that, isn't there... Maybe I'm making this up, but wasn't there some talk about Google Glass knowing when you're going over a certain speed and then restricting functionality in that case? Maybe I'm making that up, but
I haven't heard of that.
No,
I mean I've heard of that kind of thing, but I haven't heard of it specific with Google Glass operation right now. I have Glass. I haven't noticed it, but I don't drive with Glass, so
I don't think that there's any reasonable person that would think that no one wearing Glass is going to be not checking Twitter or their email or whatever when they're driving. I think it makes it way too easy and convenient to not have to hold your phone up to do what people seem to be unable to not do anyway. So I think this is a problem. I think that those of us who are tech enthusiasts and excited about Glass want to kind of defend this lady and say, well, she was probably just wearing it, or, you know, you can use navigation on it, but let's be honest, it's going to be problematic. And I think that we need to figure it out right quick, because a whole bunch of people, you know, going like this to check their email as they're driving is not a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tricky in this situation. She does say that it wasn't on when she was driving. And then some people are like, okay, well, then why are you wearing it?
Exactly.
Well, you're wearing it because being able to do a voice command to do something that you'd otherwise look down to do or whatever, like having it on means that you have access to that without kind of distracting yourself entirely.
That's the point, is that you wear them. They're supposed to be, you know, kind of cool looking. I mean, we talked earlier about how the Google Glass is getting a different look, and people are going to be able to use it with prescription lenses. But the point is that you wear it all the time, whether you're using it or not. It's always on. That's the point.
And the screen isn't always on. The tricky thing here is that the policeman, you're right, Jeff, probably pulled her over, obviously because she was speeding, and then the glass was a secondary thing. No matter what, distracted driving is distracted driving. Whether you're fiddling with a paper map, if you're doing that while you're driving, yeah, you can get pulled over because your eyes aren't on the road. If you're staring at your radio for a long period of time and swerving because of it, you'll get pulled over for that too. It's just distracted driving. It's hard to peg a ticket, though, on this screen that may or may not have been on. I think this will be an interesting case because it's going to really come down to proof, right? Was the screen on? And if it wasn't, then why does she get a ticket for it? Because the ticket is all about a screen that's within view, but and that's on.
I could say the same thing about my phone.
Yeah,
if the cop pulls me over and he's like, "I'm giving you a ticket for texting while driving," oh, my screen wasn't on.
Right. But the difference can be in that case is if you're texting, the cops are very tuned to seeing you go like this and do it repeatedly over a short period of time, looking down and everything. That's what they clue into. With glass, it's much different, right? You don't see the head move. You see them just looking straight ahead. How do you prove that?
Well, how about history logs? I mean,
yeah, and that's what it will probably come down to. Yeah.
I've heard of cases where someone says, I wasn't texting, and the cop goes, well, let me see your phone. That's never happened to me, but I mean, it's sort of like, did you just send a text? Because there is going to be a timestamp on your phone somewhere, you know?
Absolutely.
You can tell if you're lying. And then you kind of get into some like privacy issues, and I don't know how it'll shake out, but it seems like something we ought to figure out sooner than later. Because I mean, if she wasn't doing anything wrong, this is a crappy ticket. Well, she was driving 10 miles.
There's a very clear solution to this, guys.
What's that?
Self-driving cars. Let's do it. Let's bring it on.
Obviously.
Google's got an interest in that.
Google, yes, totally wants that too.
You can be in the passenger seat while you're wearing your Google wristwatch. That's another thing. As wearables become more and more a product category, if you're going to have these, the theorized Google Now watch that's supposed to come out, Google Glass, you're going on your face. If you're going to have all of these things, there's going to have to be laws written to respond to this. But like Jason's saying, distracted driving or reckless driving, you can get a ticket for that. If for some reason you're the world's best Google Glass driver, it doesn't mean that you're supposed to be doing that anyway. You're supposed to be paying attention to the road. You're driving a vehicle that could kill people. You might want to pay attention to that. So while as a nerd I would love Google Glass, if I just have to take it off while I'm driving, that's fine. I mean, I don't really see the big deal on that, other than like, there people are like, what's the difference between this and heads-up display on these windshields these days?
Yeah,
I don't really know.
And that's where it becomes also kind of complicated because Google has built in driving navigation functionality into glass. Mm-hmm. When else are you going to use it if you're not driving, if you can't wear them while driving? So there's a little bit of murky water there.
All right, let's finish up with a story about yet another company possibly interested in buying BlackBerry.
Yeah, this is an oddball one. So the Wall Street Journal is reporting that BlackBerry executives met with Facebook to determine if Facebook has any interest to buy BlackBerry. Right now, BlackBerry is undergoing an acquisition. There's like a 6-week period where Fairfax Financial, the company that's trying to take over BlackBerry, BlackBerry still gets to shop itself out for 6 weeks while the Fairfax looks at the books. The Journal says it remains unclear whether Facebook is interested in placing a bid. Facebook and phones obviously have a history. There been a rumored Facebook phone for years. The closest thing we've ever come to that is the HTC First, I think, which had that Facebook home launcher. Mark Zuckerberg has publicly said building a phone is the wrong strategy. And Facebook, if they wanted to buy this, BlackBerry still has got a patent portfolio valued in the range of $1 to $3 billion. Also has about $2.6 billion of cash, no debt. And that somewhat popular BlackBerry Messenger service, which is picking up, I think, another 20 million users since it came out for iOS and Android. All right, Jeff, simple question. Should Facebook buy BlackBerry?
No.
Simple answer.
I mean, have there ever been two companies more at cross purposes than these two? I mean, first of all, I believe Zuckerberg when he says it's a bad move to have a Facebook phone. I think that's true. But also, BlackBerry is holding on with their little fingers on a market that is business people and serious users. And Facebook is pretty much the antithesis of that, right? It's frivolous, it's fun, it's social. So I think one of those, if Facebook buys BlackBerry, it turns BlackBerry into something that it never was. And maybe they just want to get into the phone game and they're going to abandon any kind of vestige of what BlackBerry has been, and they'll, reinvent it and use patents to create their own phone. But I don't understand anybody clamor. I don't understand why anybody would clamor for a Facebook phone. We have Facebook on our phones. Like what does a Facebook phone do that having a Facebook app on my phone doesn't?
That silence
Yeah,
is the actual answer. There is no answer.
I feel like this is like one of those stories where it's like, yeah, Facebook took a meeting and were polite to some people. And now we're talking about the fact that Facebook considered buying BlackBerry. It doesn't make any sense to me either. I don't think, even if there was going to be some branded Facebook phone that was more of a Facebook phone than the HTC First, let's say, Facebook Home is it's certainly in the iteration that everyone saw was not a hit. So, is BlackBerry hardware the answer? I don't think so. And no, Facebook should not buy BlackBerry if they're still considering it. I don't think that makes any sense.
I would think, if playing devil's advocate here, if there's any reason to buy BlackBerry, any part of it, it would be for the BBM service, because Facebook has a history of a lack of privacy. And if you could say that they have enterprise-level security that's been going back to BlackBerry days, back when they were RIM, if you could say you have something that is very, very hard to crack, if not damn near impossible, that could be a interesting play for Facebook to say, look, your life's on Facebook, and now it's super secure because we've integrated this technology. That being said, I think it's generally a terrible idea to buy the hardware unit of BlackBerry.
All right, well, you heard it here. Bad ideas all around. Another bad idea we're going to talk about in the randomizer. Oh, I'm just kidding. I don't know if this is a bad idea or not, that Ashton Kutcher has joined Lenovo as a product engineer.
What the?
I'm more scratching my head than thinking it's a bad idea. Yeah, apparently Kutcher told USA Today that he is joining the team, and that it's sort of a dual role as a product engineer and obviously to spread the gospel about Lenovo products. In this article on USA Today, they point out that Kutcher studied biochemical engineering at the University of Iowa, although he did not graduate. But he certainly is becoming more and more of a name that you hear, synonymous with venture capital and tech investments. I don't know, Jeff. Stranger things have happened, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is a headline designed to elicit snarky comments. I think it's one of those, like, throw it out to the group and come up with your ridiculous joke headline. Like, I don't know, Lenovo only needs 1.5 more engineers, something like that. So that was obviously terrible. No one laughed, but that was just on the top of my head, guys. Come on, give me some time. No, but I think that these are the types of stories where it's like, well, Ashton Kutcher, I've determined, and everybody seems to agree with me that he's an idiot, so he can't possibly be an engineer. But I think this is a public relations thing, obviously, and clearly the guy loves technology, wants to have some input into making these more consumer friendly, and maybe he'll have infuse them with some interesting ideas. I don't know. I'm not willing to just poo-poo on it because Ashton Kutcher has a sort of negative public persona. I think this could be, it's I don't think he's actually in the lab engineering with them. He's probably giving ideas, looking at stuff, He seems like a passionate guy. Maybe he's got some good ideas.
Yeah, USA Today, the article actually mentions that Kutcher is the co-founder of A-Grade Investments. I didn't know this. He invested in or worked with Airbnb, Foursquare, Spotify, Path, Uber. These are pretty successful companies.
In the tech industry.
As long as this isn't like the Alicia Keys BlackBerry thing, where like she was still tweeting from her iPhone, like as long as he's actually using Lenovo products and a Lenovo phone and those kinds of things, as long as they lock that down, that might be a good idea. But if it's those embarrassing things like Oprah tweeting about the Surface from her iPad,
right?
I don't want that.
Yeah. Just, as soon as we see the first photo of Ashton Kutcher holding an iPad, we'll know it was just a publicity stunt. All right, let's see what's on the calendar.
We've got a monstrously full calendar with one item. November 6th, Nike is bringing new features to the original Fuelband. It's going to have a firmware upgrade that will bring better tracking algorithms, double tap for time, and sessions support.
Excellent. Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Got an email from Lauren Tew, who says, on yesterday's show, you gave the impression that people might not want modular phones, and to a certain degree, you might be right. But I've come across a few laptops, and I don't mean the gaming ones that have removable memory, graphics module, or in a fair number of cases, even CPU. Modularity hasn't gone the way of the dodo just yet, no matter what Intel wants you to believe. What lies there between phones and tablets? Aren't tablets just phones without voice capabilities? except 3 of their components, screen, battery, and case, they're basically the same. They have a little logic board. The big case there is just to fit the battery and the screen. Couldn't you fit in there some 802 dot something module that's not really Wi-Fi for using special wireless networks inside warehouses, say, or some sort of payment provider startup module, tracking module, or an upgradable model of a very low-powered wireless video transmission thing that's paired with its counterpart on a TV, or a gazillion other useless things that will never see the light of day if tablet modularity doesn't really become a thing different than the Asus's Russian doll pad phone pad approach? Gosh, I feel like Lauren has some pretty good ideas.
Yeah, but practically speaking, this is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's what we talked about yesterday. But I like the idea of, okay, maybe I could see a lot of these manufacturers getting on board with that, especially the mobile payment thing where we talked about, and there's all these Square dongle or the PayPal dongle. It just makes the phone and devices more cumbersome. If they had a modular phone and you could have that to be swapped out, that could be really interesting. Jeff, you got any opinion on the modular phone project, Project Ara from Motorola?
Well, it's certainly not a product I'm interested in. I don't think. I think it's a product searching for a use case, and Lauren here certainly invents some interesting ones, but they're super niche, right?
I guess we'll have to see. Maybe.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll have to come back to modular tablets another time. But we've come to the end of our show. Jeff Kanata, you've been a wonderful guest.
Thanks.
I'm glad that I was here on the show the same day that you were because we missed each other last time. Tell folks where they can see everything that you're up to online and otherwise.
Oh, easiest way is to follow me on Twitter. It's at Jeff Kanata. That's with 2 N's and 1 T, or jeffkanata.com. Also, keep an eye out for newest, latest, best every week. Just came out with the Halloween episode. It's super fun. Oh, you can see me there, lit spookily for Halloween. Yeah. And that's on YouTube. Kanata Jeff is my YouTube channel.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody who submitted stories to our subreddit. technewstoday.reddit.com is where you can not only submit stories that you'd like us to talk about, but vote them up or down. So we get, you get enough people who really care about something. Well, we tend to put it in the show. You can also email us, tnt@twit.tv. You can call us at 260-TNT-SHOW. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well at youtube.com/technewstoday. And of course, subscribe to the podcast and get your show notes at twit.tv/TNT. Tomorrow we've got Tom Krazit of GigaOM. See you then.